Heritage Weekend. Welcome to the Sandton Times podcast. Wherever you're listening, streaming, downloading, or whatever it is that you do with this podcast, thank you so much for making the time to listen. Coming to you from Sun City in the Northwest Province, and I'll give you a little bit more details as to how this is all coming together. But we're on location. Great to be here. Before we get into all those details, don't forget that you can connect with the Sandton Times podcast on editor at sandtontimes.co.za. Drop us a mail with your feedback, your ideas, your comments. Maybe there's something that's happening that you want us to have a look into, maybe chat about. Well, use that email address. You can also connect with us on social media at Sandton Times. That's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you prefer. Pick one and get in touch. You can also follow us on all those platforms. Then you can visit the blog at sandtontimes.co.za. And don't forget that you can subscribe, share, and leave a review or rating for this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, SoundCloud, and we also have a YouTube channel. And if you are listening to this podcast today, well, you can also watch it on YouTube, as we've been doing with our on-location recordings. We've had some great visuals that we've been recording with some cameras, so you can get a bit of a perspective and a bit of a view of what we're seeing and what we're looking at, especially when we're out and about on location with our mobile studio, wherever we're going, and we set it all up, and we give you a bit of a perspective of what it's like and give you a live feel of the space that we're in. So, welcome to our listeners that always listen to us from Greater Santon and beyond, and also from around the world. And this past week we had some listeners in Qatar and Greece, so welcome, and I'm happy to report that all is well in Santon land. And if you're gauging the sounds in the background, as I mentioned, we're on location in Sun City. Last week we were in Dullstrom, and you might remember that we were on our way to the Kruger National Park, and I got a phone call from Sun International, and they said, listen, we're reopening the Valley of the Waves in Sun City. We'd love you to be here. We'd love you to kind of give everyone a first-hand account of what's happening at Sun City, and also that the Valley of the Waves is now getting back online. And we said, well, look, you know what? We need to bring our listeners the freshest content, and we made arrangements, did some rescheduling on our travel plans, and came to Sun City. So we're going to still be bringing you more content from the Kruger Park. That's all in the pipeline, but we have to kind of roll with the punches as they come. And so we're in Sun City bringing you all the best from here. Unfortunately, we also don't have our DeLonghi coffee with us. That coffee machine is not really something that you can pack into a suitcase and carry around, but they do power us once we're back home and we're back in our usual sort of Santon spot. But for now, it's tourism month, tourism's open. We're trying to find out, how is COVID-19 protocol impacting some of the places you want to go to? What great opportunities are there? What great destinations? What deals are there? And how have things changed and how have things improved? So instead of sitting in Santon and kind of just talking about it and kind of, why not just go out and actually see what's happening? So once again, if you've got access to YouTube, get onto YouTube and watch what we're talking about. You can also see some of the visuals, and you also get a bit of a feel for the surroundings. We're also going to be monitoring your tweets, Instagram posts throughout this podcast to see what you're saying. So please do use the @Sandton Times account when you tweet. So, from our completely mobile studio on location, in a moment, I'm going to introduce my first guest for this week. Well, true to his words, he's right opposite me. It's Brett Hoppé, General Manager, Sun City Resort. Good to have you on the podcast again.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. What a beautiful day.
Well, you know what? It is Sun City, and I'm glad the sun is out.
Yeah, it's one of the better locations I think you broadcast from. So.
Yeah, it is actually. I mean, overlooking the Valley of the Waves, which opens officially this week, just in time for the Heritage Day weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited. It's been a long road to get it back up to full operation. Obviously lockdown and COVID, we had the opportunity to do some maintenance that hasn't really been done for a long time because we've had a protracted period of access. So really exciting and nice to bring it back.
Is everything 100% yet, Brett, the way you want it? Or is it still a bit of corona rust that...
Yeah, I think we've still got some corona rust to flush out of the system. Obviously, you've got in excess of 10 million litres of water going into the valley, so we need the filters to run. So, we've checked all the balance in terms of the various chemicals, but it obviously takes some time to clarify. So, it will come back over the next day or two, but other than that, everything's good to go.
And have you tested all the slides? Have you checked the surf? Is everything 100%?
Well, it was very funny. The lead of the project team, if he failed to deliver the opening day today, he was going down the Temple of Courage in his red G-strings.
You know what? Nothing like a threat like that to put the fear of God into people.
Needless to say, we made the deadline.
Well, Brett, tell us, what drove the eventual opening of the Valley of the Waves? You've opened in stages, but I think you got to a point where I think the demand to open the valley just happened.
Ideally, we would have liked to have brought the valley back much earlier, but we had some technical issues with quite a complicated situation with a pipe that we've been dealing with. But we just had to get it open for the Heritage Weekend. There was really no choice, So ideally, we would have liked to have brought it back right from the get-go. But as you rightly point out, the demand is there. We've been under massive pressure to get it open. I'm pleased that we're now back and we've got it open for Heritage Weekend.
We spoke 2 or 3 weeks ago when Sun City had just reopened. How have things developed over the last 2-3 weeks? Has there been any interesting developments, some learnings?
Well, it's been quite astounding. If one takes it that 30% of our normal business is normally locked into international and a further 25% sits in conference. And if you look at the occupancies at the moment, albeit that we have the Cascades out of circulation, it's just crazy. I'm hoping that the domestic market has responded to the plea, to support our local tourism product, not only Sun City but the broader tourism industry, because it's really, really important now that we bring products back into circulation in order to preserve as many jobs as we possibly can. The entire industry is under pressure. I think that whilst we do have an element of international travel, the regulations that surround it are pretty onerous. So how quickly that returns to normality. We're seeing some countries contemplating a second lockdown. I was reading an article this morning where the UK is looking at a second lockdown. So I think it's still uncertain time. So from a domestic market point of view, it's been amazing. What it has done is it's caused massive seasonality, because obviously your weekends you're full and then it slides off in the midweek. I think the exception at Sun City is really the vacation club, where our owners are, we've literally been full since the time we reopened, and looking all the way through October and November. So our vacation club product has been really well received and has always been well received, but we're not seeing any slide off in occupancies there. Whether what we're seeing from a hotel occupancy point of view sustains, it'll be quite interesting to see whether it's just a burst of pent-up demand. But certainly over the last couple of weekends, it's been amazing. And I walk around in the mornings and I go and talk to customers in the various breakfast rooms, and it's so amazing just to feel the energy. Talk to people at the breakfast table. They're just so excited to be out and about. They're just having breakfast, and we've been blessed with some magnificent weather over the last couple of weekends. So and it's just, I think it's taught us all a huge lesson. We take nothing for granted. Just to sit outdoors at breakfast and be served breakfast in a hotel environment is something that we didn't have for the better part of 160 days, I guess.
Brett, let's quickly touch on the Cascades. You mentioned it briefly. It's not closed because of lack of demand. You're actually doing a little bit of a refurb, a little bird tells me.
Correct. So what we did with the Cascades, and we looked at it coming out of COVID, and we decided to expedite the refurb in the Cascades. We were in the process of replacing the lifts during COVID, so in a certain sense that gave us a huge gap, because to do such a huge project, the 3 lifts in Cascades are external facing lifts and very, very difficult. We had to replace all the doors, so COVID gave us a gap to do that. But then we also expedited, as soon as the regulations on construction lifted, we've expedited the refurb. A hotel is a particularly difficult thing to execute a refurb in when you're in trading. So rather than inconvenience the customers, we thought, let's expedite that refurb, let's get it done as quickly as we can. But I think certainly on the weekends for Sun City, the demand is come around a bit quicker than we anticipated. Notwithstanding, we're going to push through on the Cascades, get it back to magnificent condition, and then move ahead. I mean, we've got some really, really exciting things coming up, some new restaurant offerings that are concurrent with the refurb at the Cascades, and some new restaurant offerings, really exciting restaurant offerings coming into the Valley of the Waves. We're about to conclude, in fact, it opens tomorrow. We've refurbished the Shebeen down at the base of the cabanas during the COVID shutdown. So we're bringing that back on stream, and the new restaurants at Cascades will also come on stream potentially before we open the Cascades, actually, because those will open to the public prior. So.
Can you reveal what those restaurants are? Or is that still under lock and key?
Well, the offering at the Cascades has always been a Greek offering, always been successful. Years ago it was called Santorini. So we're about to launch a new offering there called Maltos and Maltos Beach Bar, which covers the pool deck at the Cascades, which I think is magnificent. If you look at the renderings and the coloration, it just fits right in with that pool. So that's really exciting and vibrant. And then the ones that are going to arrive in the Valley of Waves, we're just inking the contract, so I wouldn't like to preempt that, but it's exciting. And one of them, in fact, will be the largest store of its brand in South Africa, and it's a really, really cool, funky brand, so I'm very excited about that. And I think it's going to change the entire experience in the Valley of Waves. I mean, typically we've done fast food in there, but this is more a sit-down offering, really funky, modern product. The fast food operator that's coming into the Valley, they also have a very clever app service. So typically in the Valley, when we've reached peak periods, it's been really challenging. You kind of get in the queue to get your burger and those type of things. It's a little bit frustrating sometimes. So what they've configured is on their app that you can lie on the beach, order it, get your order number, get the prompt when it's ready, and then just go straight to the window and collect your order by number. So I think that's also going to change, the service landscape and the customer ease of use.
Let's quickly talk about some operational things, and also I think to manage people's expectations. So right now, it's MVG and residents that are able to access Sun City as a resort for the time being, until things change. Is that correct?
Yes, so at the moment it's vacation club residents, hotel residents, our MVG program card holders, and then obviously where they're peripheral services, so anyone who has a valid golf booking, for example, obviously has access to the resort, and a valid spa booking similarly. So it's a bit challenging at the moment. If you look at the level 1 regs, we expected a little bit more of a lift. I mean, the curfew was a surprise to us. Our expectation was that the curfew would be lifted under the stage 1 regs, which unfortunately hasn't. And it's quite difficult for customers to understand. We adhere strictly to the curfew. So at 12 o'clock at night, we've got to shut the casino down, shut all the restaurants down. And, when someone's within the confines of Sun City, it's a little bit difficult to explain.
It feels like another country, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, working on it, and I think we chatted about it before, is saying what we've tried to create at Sun City by strict adherence to the protocols is, in essence, a bio-bubble. So anyone that's in Sun City, whether it be a staff member or a customer, has fully complied with all COVID regulations and, is in essence as compliant as they can be. Social distancing observed, etc., etc. So, I'm hoping for some further relief from the regulations. But as I say, at this point in time, because of those regulations, we're anxious to open the Valley of Waves to day visitors. There's a huge demand. Follow on social media. If you look at our page, people are saying, please, when's Valley of Waves going to open to the public? But just under the present regulations, if you take it, if we're full, we would have about 4,500 to 5,000 residents on site. That's just Vacation Club, Palace, Cabanas and Soho, with Cascades being closed. So, we're all 40 or 50% of those patrons to come to the Valley of Waves would be right on the perimeter or on the parameter as prescribed, because water parks are treated separately in the regulations. So, it's a bit disappointing for us. We really want the public to come back to the Valley. We've worked hard to get it back to condition and open in time for summer.
So right now, if you're looking or you were thinking of coming to the Valley of the Waves for the Heritage Day long weekend as a day visitor, you're going to have to hang tight. but I'm sure Sun City will communicate with its audience and the greater public once that time does arrive where you can just come in for the day. Brett, what's keeping you up at night at the moment? What are you still looking out for till this year ends?
Well, I think, anxiously waiting to see what happens with international travel and seeing how quickly the international travel market returns. Anxiously watching the developments in the conference space, because that's a huge part of our business. And again, when you say keep me up at night, I mean, for me, at the end of the day, I'm kind of the custodian of all the jobs at Sun City, or I feel responsible. So, job preservation is key. And the quicker we can return to normality, the more jobs we can preserve. Obviously from a business transactional perspective, it's really tough to balance expense outlay when you are not operating at your full revenue capability because of various restrictions. So that really bugs me. And we've seen the impact in the communities around us of COVID. I think it hasn't really been widely reported in the media. We've been out there and we've been doing as much charity and relief work as we possibly can, and having said that, you can never do enough. You just get out there, and I've been out there myself, and the impacts will be felt for a long time to come. It's devastating, and particularly the most needy. So the various charities, because what's happened is a lot of the NGO support has dried up. So you've seen institutions and homes and things like that for the aged really in a desperate plight. So we're attempting to support as many of those causes as we can. But again, that keeps me awake. It's the people who rely on us.
There you have it, the man running the Sun Kingdom on the ground here. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. A difficult business to run, I think, under normal circumstances, and even more complex business to run under COVID-19 restrictions. But we really appreciate your time. And Brett Hoppé, General Manager of Sun City Resort, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks again. It's always a privilege to be with you. Thanks for having us, and enjoy the weather today.
And it's time to get into the stories making headlines in Santon for this week. This update is brought to you by megaflightdeals.com, your one-stop for non-stop cheap flights. And kicking off with our first story, Johannesburg City Power cut electricity supply at several posh estates in Dainfern this week. News 24 reports that City Power says residents at 204 properties owed millions in revenue. The highest single debt for one customer was 1.4 million, and 13 million rand were outstanding by residents. The operation is part of City Power's revenue collection efforts targeting those who owe on their electricity bill and are legally connected to our network, bridged meters and meters that have been tampered with to ensure the customer is not correctly billed, said spokesperson Isaac Mangena. I don't know about you, but my electricity bill seems ridiculously high. I swear it's probably tripled in the last 2 or 3 months, and electricity consumption hasn't been that different. I mean, we're out of winter now. We haven't been using that much more electricity. I mean, in fact, we've had all the load shedding happening, and yet I can't understand how I'm paying more for electricity even with the increases. So I'm quite interested to see what's happening there, and I think there's a lot of people querying their electricity bills at this point in time, and I'm actually quite keen to get a little bit more information on that. Then water restrictions loom. The Citizen reports that the Department of Water and Sanitation has warned that unless the rising temperatures are curbed by heavy downpours in the coming months, municipalities countrywide could be forced to introduce water restrictions. South Africans should prepare themselves for water restrictions in coming months as rising temperatures and evaporation place extra pressure on the country's dams, which would require heavy downpours to remedy. The Department of Water and Sanitation also warned that though dam levels appear to be stabilizing, rising temperatures threaten to affect them negatively through evaporation after temperatures reached an average of 30 degrees Celsius in recent weeks. The department said water levels in dams countrywide are currently dropping at 1% week on week, and should the hot conditions continue without plenty of rain, municipalities could be forced to introduce stringent water restrictions to alleviate the situation. Yeah, so I guess just keep an eye on your water usage. I know the gardens in and around Santon are running a little bit dry, and it's a fine balance. And there is nothing better than rainwater to kind of reinvigorate those lawns and those plants. So yeah, I was actually even thinking of getting one of those JoJo tanks that, once it starts raining, at least you can collect some water and maybe use that to water the garden and do all the things. They're not necessarily bathing or showering, but at least you can, just have some water that you can use that you maybe stored. Then Captain Mayer bids farewell to the Santon police station. The Santon Chronicle reports that Communications Officer Captain Granville Mayer of the Sandton police station is spreading his wings, and he's going back to the mother city, and he would most definitely miss Johannesburg and some of its journalists, he said. Being the communication officer for almost 3 years at the station, Mayor played a huge role from implementing charity initiatives to introducing us to his puppet, Captain Kumalo, and his effort did not go unnoticed, and he's got a very cool sort of hand puppet, sort of almost like a ventriloquist puppet that was used quite a bit in educating school kids and sort of other youth about what the police does and how they do it, and a huge hit, and we will see who takes over this important role of communications officer at the Sandton police station. Then South Africans celebrated Heritage Day this week with song and dance at the Nelson Mandela Square. Associated Press reports that South Africans of all walks of life are dancing to Jerusalema, a rousing anthem to lift their spirits amid the battle against COVID-19. In response to the call from President Cyril Ramaphosa to mark the country's Heritage Day holiday, the hit track took to the square, with dancers joining all walks of life from around the country in jiving to this popular track. And then finally, Emirates resumes flights to South Africa. Emirates has announced it will resume flights to Johannesburg from 1 October. The addition to the 5 points will expand the Emirates global network to 92 destinations as the airline gradually resumes its operations while prioritizing the safety of its customers, crew and communities it serves around the world. Emirates African network will also now extend to 19 cities. Customers flying in and out of Emirates' 3 South African gateways can safely travel to Dubai and to an array of onward connections in Europe, the Far East, Middle East, West Asia and Australasia. Flights scheduled for Emirates South African destinations will be available on Emirates.com later this week. And then just a quick mention while we're here in Sun City, there were some issues on the R556. If you're heading to Sun City, this road was closed due to a service delivery protest. The South African police established some roadblocks along the road to monitor the situation. But proceed with caution, or alternatively, if you just want to be safe and you're heading to Sun City, just use the N4 via Rustenburg instead, and you can circumvent any sort of issues that you might discover on the way. All right, we're getting to meet everybody here at Sun City, and sitting right opposite me behind the microphone now is Rudi van Schalkwyk. He's the general manager of Sun Vacation Club in Sun City. Rudi, great to have you join us on this podcast.
Thank you very much.
So Rudi, tell me, you are responsible for the timeshare, for the space that a lot of people know when they come to Sun City, you know, especially if you've got families, if you in the timeshare space. What's it been like reopening?
It's been interesting. People are very cautious of obviously social distancing, wearing their masks and all those kinds of things, and making sure they stay safe and sanitize and all that kinds of things. From our side, obviously, we've made sure the units are extra clean, they get sanitized, they get sealed, and we don't allow our staff into the units after the customer's checked in unless the customer requests that. So that's basically what we do. It's been a challenge, but we're getting used to it and getting into this.
Well, look, I've heard a lot of people in the hospitality space talk about the COVID rust that they have to kind of like shed off because everyone's been out of action for 6 months. But things have still carried on here, even during lockdown.
We did a lot of maintenance at Vacation Club. We basically did some refurbishment work. We built the first outdoor jump park in the country. And we were quite busy, and we still carried on. We didn't have any customers, unfortunately, but we're preparing for them to return.
What's the response been like? I mean, you've been open for, 2-3 weeks now, and what's the response been like from the public?
This coming weekend will be our third weekend open, and we've had a fantastic response. Our first weekend occupancy was 60%, and this coming weekend will be on 100% occupancy.
A lot of people have timeshare. They've got a specific week during the year that they're allowed to come. Some of that fell during lockdown. How does that now? How do you work that out? That things are open up again. How do they reclaim that week, or have they lost that week, or how does that work?
So basically, with our timeshare, it works a little bit different than a lot of other timeshare companies in the country. Our timeshare doesn't work on a specific week. Our timeshare works on a selection out of 41 or out of 52 weeks. We only have 11 peak weeks. What we did is we gave the peak week owners the option to exchange that peak week either with our exchange partners, or they can actually book another period for that, not a peak week, but one of our flexi weeks. And the people that's anniversary cycle expired in this period, we're giving them until the 31st of July next year to make use of that space.
Right. So. And you've made a couple of changes now during lockdown. I see we just took a walk around, and you've opened up a new jump park. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's the first of its kind outdoor jump park. It's like what you'll find in a city centre shopping mall. So we just built the first outdoor one in the country. It was built by our members for anybody at Sun City that would like to use it. Yeah, and it is very exciting because it's the first of its kind and it's very new. Only opened on the 4th of September when we opened the resort again.
Well, if you're listening and you're not familiar with what this looks like, it's literally a whole bunch of trampolines that are sort of next to each other, and you're literally bouncing off walls, you're bouncing off the floor, you're bouncing wherever you need to bounce, and you get special socks that you put on.
Non-slip socks.
Non-slip socks, and you get to basically burn off all those calories and that energy that you might have, especially the kids, because I think there's a lot of parents who can't wait to get out of the house and let their kids do something outside again. So it must be one hell of a popular thing at Vacation Club.
Yeah, it is very popular. I mean, the growth on that has increased week by week by at least 50%. Every week we see a 50% increment in number of people making use of it. So it's been amazing to see it grow and people make use of it and people enjoying it actually and going for multiple jumps. You have to buy the non-slip socks once, and after that basically you can jump as many times as you like.
So what is the kind of the rule been in terms of, you know, the time that you've been open with people wearing masks in and around the resort, in and around the vacation club? I can't imagine people having to wear a mask jumping on the trampolines. How does that work in the swimming pool areas? I mean, I'm sure you're probably still figuring this out as you go along, but it'd be quite interesting to hear how you're kind of managing that.
Yeah, we basically, what we try and do is, I mean, the wearing of masks in public is compulsory, obviously, as legislated by the government. The people sitting next to the pools obviously don't want to wear a mask when they sunbathe in the sun. So, I mean, when they're on the lounger, we kind of like excuse it. But when you stand up and you move around, either going to the bathroom or going to the restaurants or walking around in general, we expect you to wear your mask. And then obviously inside the swimming pool, you don't have to wear it, but as soon as you move around in public, you have to. On the jump park, kind of like it's the same rules as in a gym. Once you're jumping, you actually don't have to wear it. So once you're doing exercise, physical exercise, you don't have to wear it. But as soon as you come off, obviously you have to put it on, because then you're in a public space.
And I see you've also got quite stringent sort of processes in terms of also, like all the other hotels at Sun City, you've got sanitation as you walk in, somebody checks your temperature, all the people behind the counter have got their masks, all the staff are running around with masks. So you seem to have pretty much got a good grip on all of it.
We want to set the example to everyone else because we can't tell people to put on a mask if we don't wear it ourselves. You know, so it's very important for us, for our staff to follow the rules. Yes, we ask you to sanitize before you enter our reception. When you check in, we'll sanitize the door keys, we'll sanitize the pens that you use to sign the documentation with, and we try and do as much as we can from our side to make sure that everybody's safe when they visit Sun City.
So there's not much left of the year, Rudi. I mean, it's a hop, skip and a jump, and it's Christmas and it's New Year's, and then we're into another year.
2 months away.
A lot of people might say, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
What's your projections like for the rest of the year? I mean, what does the occupation look like? Are you seeing more demand coming in? I mean, I suppose you don't have much of an international audience, so you're not too worried about that. But what does the local audience look like till December and into the new year?
So basically, all our peak weeks that start as of the 3rd week of December until the middle of January is already sold out. So that's already fully booked. We've got very, very limited space left on weekends until the 27th of January in 2021. But midweek we do still have some space for rental guests or for our members to enjoy and book the space from Monday to Friday.
And what's some of the feedback that you're getting from some of your return customers who haven't been here for, 6 months? What are they saying when they see you?
I think they're just excited to be out of their houses, to be honest. They're just happy to be away from home. And they're happy with the procedures we've put in place for COVID, obviously. They're happy with the sanitizing steps that we've taken on the resort. And we do have the odd and their customer that doesn't want to wear a mask and doesn't want to sanitize, but we say, unfortunately, this is the rule. Before you can enter, you have to do these things. So, but generally, we've got happy crowds, we've got happy people, and we do the best we can to make everybody smile.
And how's the staff reacted now that they're all back again? Your team is sort of back in gear. How have they reacted to all of this?
The staff are very excited to be back at work, obviously, because it's been a long 6 months. They haven't been able to work or be able to come to work. So a lot of them are very excited to be back at work. And they're doing whatever they can to make sure our customers are serviced or helped and guided and assisted wherever they can.
Well, Rudi van Schalkwyk, General Manager of Sun Vacation Club in Sun City. I know you've got a lot to do. You've got people standing queues to take all of this in that you've been looking after for the last 6 months. Thank you so much for joining us on this interview, and all the best for the rest of the year.
Thank you so much.
Well, as I say in Afrikaans, alles van die beste.
Baie dankie.
Yeah, goed so. Well, we're really going to get to meet everybody here at Sun City whilst we're here, and probably the most important business or heritage business up until now at Sun City has always been the casino. It's been around since the beginning of Sun City. It's been one of the main attractions. It's gone through its phases. It's changed. It's gone through all kinds of evolutions, but probably none as dramatic as probably the last 6 months. Sitting right opposite me now is Mark Bricknell. He's the slots manager at Sun City Casino. Mark, tell me, how's your life changed since the beginning of COVID and up until now?
Obviously, we went through lockdown the same as everybody else did. Being at a resort, we couldn't open at the same time as the other casinos did, so it took us another month and a half to actually get the business going again. So we opened around about the 2nd of September. So we've been going for a good 3 weeks now, and so far very challenging.
Well, Mark, let me paint everybody a picture. I took a walk through the casino quickly just to get a sense of how things have changed, and you've really done some interesting things in terms of putting these dividers in between each of the slot machines. You've done dividers in between the roulette, the blackjack. So everyone's kind of almost got their own little, let's call it a phone booth or bubble that they sit in. And you've also gone a little bit further than that. Maybe just take us through some of the other steps you've done.
Well, yes, it's been a challenge, and actually a costly little exercise that we went through as well. We, as you said, quite rightly so, we've put up the perspex dividers between every single slot machine on the floor, as well as we've separated the tables positions. So now, instead of having about 7 players per table, we're down to a maximum of 4. So just to give that social distancing, that spacing that's required by legislation. The slot machines, we've done the same, but we've gone one step further now. We've switched off every second machine as well. So not only have you got a screen between you and the person next to you, you've actually got a screen, a machine that's off, another screen, and then only the other person. So yeah, pretty challenging in terms of that exercise.
And how's that impacted you as a business? I mean, it's obviously you can have less people on the floor now. Your people are really sort of hesitant to kind of go somewhere. Has that really made a dramatic impact on how things are working and how the money's coming in?
Well, certainly we've sort of halved the capacity that we were used to in the past. And being a resort destination casino, we relied heavily on our weekend trade. As opposed to the midweek trade. So, midweek slowed down quite a bit. Although we've had the influx of people on the weekends, it's still not at the capacities we were used to. So, yes, business is basically, let's say, halved.
To understand this a little bit more from somebody who's not a regular gamer per se, self-confessed non-regular gamer, there's still a touch element to it. When you're playing things like blackjack, when you're playing things like roulette, you're still touching chips, you're still touching cards, and without going into the ridiculous, I mean, you can't laminate or vacuum pack each card and each token or each chip. What is the process there in terms of trying to, limit the exposure?
Right. Well, yes, there are, as you say, a lot of touch points in the casino. We'll start off with the slot machines. Before you play, there is a sanitizing team that will walk around, and they're actually sanitizing machines and button panels so that when you get there, it's now freshly sanitized. They also alert to when you leave the particular machine, and they will come and sanitize once you have left as well, so it's ready for the next person. On the tables, bit more challenging, obviously, as you said, the exchange of chips and things like that. Before anybody joins a table to play, they are asked to sanitize their hands. All the dealers at each table have a sanitizing bottle, and everybody sanitizes. Routinely as well, then we dispose of the decks of cards so that not too many people have touched those anyway. And the chips are, on a nightly basis, they are sanitized as we take them off the tables and we prepare them for the next morning again.
It kind of reminds me, as you were talking about this, when I first came to Sun City many, many years ago, you still had those little margarine tubs with I think it was the 1 Rand coins or the 50 cents, and I mean, your fingers ended up coming out sort of like charcoal or black or whatever because of the coins going through the machines. I mean, this is almost like the complete opposite to that. I mean, this is almost a clinically clean environment now.
Well, the technology has forced us to evolve as well. So at least, getting rid of those old coins and tokens was a step in the right direction in preparing for this unknown that has just happened. Now we just use the MVG card, which is a smart card, which the funds get loaded onto, and all you are in contact with is your card. So you put that in a machine, you can play, and then once you're done, you cash out, and the value is on your card. So there is no more coins, no more tubs, no more of that dirtiness that always accompanied gaming.
And people are still required to wear masks while they're sitting at the machine or sitting at the table? Is that still part of the process?
Absolutely, as is law. We have to enforce that they wear their masks and that. Obviously, while they're having a drink or a cigarette or something like that, they do take it off and that. But, we got to walk around and manage the process. And we obviously tell them, once you're done, put it back on. When you need to have another sip, take it back, take it off again, and so on and so forth.
Mark, are there quite a few things that you guys have put in place where you're thinking, you know what, actually, this wasn't actually a bad addition to what we were doing so far. Maybe we should actually keep this going forward?
Well, one would think that, besides the partitions between machines being restrictive and all of that, it's, as you say, it's almost playing in your own little booth in that. So, who knows how long this will last? And I think, yes, it's an innovation that might stay for a while longer than necessary. Obviously, on the tables, we'd like to get rid of them as soon as possible because, you'd like to increase your capacity back to 7 players on a table as opposed to the 4. But slots, yes, I think that's quite good, and obviously just your general hygiene protocols. People are more aware that they have to wash their hands often, that they should sanitize. I think it's just human, decent practice.
You've also done some really cool things in the tech space. Most of the places you go to in Santon, there's people standing at the door with this little sort of toy gun that kind of, they point at your head or at your arm and they kind of get a measurement in terms of what the temperature is. You've got something that's almost a little bit more higher grade than that. Do you want to just tell us about that? It's sort of an artificial intelligence type of temperature measure.
Yeah, sure. Instead of needing somebody to manually take your temperature, they little screens that you actually look into, and it'll tell you if you haven't got a mask on to please put one on. So the sound comes through there, and it takes your temperature at the same time. So obviously, the security guard standing at the entrances can look over your shoulder and see, yes, you're under the 37 degrees. So great, you're welcome. In you come. So yes, that's great. And then some of the sanitizers you'll see on the gaming floors, they are the hands-free type, so you don't need anybody with a squirt bottle or anything like that. So you just use your foot and you just push down and it sprays in your hands and off you go.
So Mark, as we head for December, usually a very busy time, apart from Heritage Day weekend, long weekend, which I'm sure you guys are going to have an influx of people coming in. What's your outlook in terms of the gaming part of Sun City? Are you expecting a lot of your regular gamers to come back? Are you really seeing them coming back? Are you seeing an influx, or do you think it's going to be a little bit tight? Because people have had a tough 6 months when it comes to finances, when it comes to salary cuts. Some people have lost jobs. What's your outlook? Yeah,
they certainly have been through a rough time, and haven't we all? In the 3 weeks we've been open, we've had 3 weekends, and so far it's been outstanding to see the family back again, and that's what we term them. They are like family to Sun City. So all our regular, bigger guests have come back. Obviously those that weren't the bigger players are obviously struggling like the rest of us, but those that I think are sort of well off have made it back no problem. And they've actually, they couldn't wait to come back. Like lockdown and isolation was painful for everybody. So as soon as the interprovincial travel was allowed again, man, the whole of Gauteng arrived on our doorstep. It was wonderful.
Am I hearing a little bit of average spend possibly having stayed the same, or has there been a bit of a decrease?
Look, it's still early days, but your top-end players will stay your top-end players. Obviously, they still had money in the bank and that, and so they the patrons we get. It's just the old 80-20 principle, isn't it? So 80% of our revenue comes from 20% of the players, if not less. So those are the guys that are still in the money and can afford to still come and visit us. The what we call the grind action trade is not as it used to be, but you can expect that.
We've been chatting to a lot of the team members as we've been making our way through the resort. The Cascades is under renovation. There's some new exciting things happening there. The Valley of the Waves is expecting some new additional features. Anything happening on the gaming side at Sun City that people can potentially look forward to?
Well, we've got our normal, usual new slot machines coming in and that during the course of the year. But other than that, besides the bolt-on technology in terms of bonusing and things, we're not really going to go overboard this year. You know, money is tight in any business, so we've got to watch our spend as well. No, I think it's pretty much same old, what our patrons are used to.
Well, Mark Bricknell, slots manager at Sun City Casino, thank you for making the time to be on the podcast. And all the best for, what do you say? May Lady Luck be on your side?
There we go. Break your leg.
Okay, time for us to take a quick break as we come to the end of part 1 of our episode 26, week 39 of 2020, on location at the Sun City Resort in the northwest province of South Africa. More interviews coming up in part 2. You're listening to the Sandton Times podcast.